Hey, what's going on, y'all? Back with another one. Indus Valley Part 2 is pretty much what we seen, what we get. I just want to talk about a few things. Like the part 1 last Wednesday, it's it was really revealing, and we were just talking about, where the stuff comes from and things like that nature. So it's like you get what you get, but normally we're just gonna look into some of the things. We're gonna go into detail. I'm gonna make this just strictly part 2, the final part of this, and we're gonna talk about it. Okay, so we talked about the structures in part 1. I'm gonna get y'all up to speed. Let me share this real quick. Let me see very quick. We're gonna go into those valley. Take myself out the screen for a minute. Y'all bear with me, bear with me. Okay, I'm gonna pick it up. All right. We talk about all this, the burial and all the way through the people from the Marines. That's part 1. Talk about the culture, what those people would probably look like in close and modernization. But we talk about this in the graphs and all this stuff. So this is like part 1. For this website. Shouts to the brother that created. Salute him, do all the great work, whatever. Right, and then we talked about the deities. Talked about that model tablets and their idols and all that they worship. And then typical large cities plan and all this other stuff, right? See, I didn't go in depth on this, but this is what it looked like throughout the city. That's what they look like underground. And we talked about the desert, of course. They talk about the 12 meters high, staircases and things like that. So basically, you have a civilization like this years and years ago, but completely forgotten. But here's the idols. They said the toy ox or water buffalo down the cart where they deliver from Harappa or something like that, and that's the people they deliver. Talking about the oxen, the cattle, they get their food and stuff, and they have what they would say in those Valley bronze model chariot down by bulls. That's what they did for cattle. It's back then. That's how, and they existed. And this is the sculptures they would have done. The priest king, 2,600 BCE. Mohenjo Doro Taricha statue. This is the statue of those people would look like. That was back in time. They don't exist anymore, but that's what they would look like. They identify themselves as, right? So it's like you see this stuff all the time. You'd be like, okay, we here, and then you got the Harappa 2,300 BCE in the same year. That's what the people would look like, right? That's how they identify us by these images. But what they actually look like, sculptures and all that, they found them. A boy found them here, but he didn't have enough to go on, and they probably was in a burial so deep. Like I was civil, this is the artist of rendering of the Lotho. That's what they would say they would look like. So those people. So it's kind of like they have evidence. Then the jewelry, the golden age, the ornaments and things like that. Really skim through this part. And it says the Indus religion was animalistic. I mean, a mystic. Excuse me, a mystic. The Indus religion was animistic. They said animistic. They used the unicorn, cattle, elephants, and other animals to represent their gods. See, worship different deities and idolatries. Like they worship, like they said, unicorn, cattle, elephants, and other animals to represent their gods. Right? They call it animistic. Yeah, animistic, like religion. That's their religion is animistic, right? But they're seemingly the originators of the unicorn, which they are. They are the originators of the unicorn. According to this search, that's what this guy is saying. But he said exact meaning horn horse to the unknown. They call it the unknown. That's what unicorn means, is the unknown. And then what they was talking about is their deities right here. Exactly, the Harpara unicorn seal, right? That's what you see in Indus Valley right in here. So that's what they're talking about. So they're talking about a culture that lasted for those years, but that culture is dead now. You don't see it no more, but you find relics of those people did exist. So you have these things going on. Why would anybody talk about it, right? So when you have a culture of people that's been displaced for all these years, you got to understand that Indus Valley is very important in history, like any dark history, any cultures that you see is made those people got ideas from. So you see a lot of these scholars and Edomite scholars, whatever, they try to shame people in it. But you got to understand, this is the type of world we into. I don't understand that so-called white scholars will always say, what type of scholarship we need, right? Oh, excuse me. And it's just like, you see this time and time again, and they get in these emotions. Why would anybody care, right? But when you talk about scholarship, when you talk about people where they get this from, they get it from these people. Other cultures have certain things they made was first, right? But that doesn't mean they're the best people. Okay. The best people produce better generations and civilizations and culture and identity and respect me what they've done. All cultures have their thing, but were they perfect? Hell no. It's just Indus Valley was kind of the decent ones I saw and ran. I should have did some of this years ago, but since they talk about the unicorn, this didn't pique my interest back in the day, but it's piquing my interest now because I can go in depth and see what these people were. And I read some of the things, and this thing is right. So they say it's unknown. The Indus seals in the seal below, we have a depiction of the deity. In this case, the Ma'al or Mal as unicorn, and under the of the votive inscription, devoted inscription was written above the deity in a Harpara script. But the manager under the head of Ma'al is made of several Indos signs. It is read pu pa or a flourishing condition, though thou disturb it. That's what it said, thou disturb it. And that's the inscription right there. They talking about their language. That's what it means. And they have it right here again with the deity, right? So again, in those valleys, it's a tough one to swallow. And then they got other deities and the bull. That's what they worship. And this is the people that you would see in the statue down here. They said sometimes between 1,800 1,700 BCE, the civilization on the Indus plain, all of the advantage, what befall these people is unknown. They say it's unknown what happened to those people. That's a great case to talk about, right? One suspect causes is a shift in the Indus River. Yeah, the Indus River. They call it Indus Valley instead of Indus River now. Another is a huge ruinous of the earthquake. They try to say the earthquake, so most people die from the earthquake. That's possible. And still, the another is the monumental flooding of the rivers, flooding that would explain the thick layer of the silt 30 feet. So there was people there. I believe it's the flooding. I'm gonna say it like that. That's my assumption. It's the flooding or the earthquake. That's one of the two things. Everything else is the change of the river. But it was known as Indus Valley. It was a civilization before others. So this is history right here. So they said a thick layer, the slit, the 30 feet above of the level of the river, and the site of the Mohenjo-Daro. Of course, these are unsustained theories. They call them theories. That's what they say. Yeah, those theories most people believe. They're just as they said they believe it's earthquake or the flooding or the water. That's what they say. My man's saying okay, but no one knows what really. They said what really caused the people to leave. Yeah, what really people caused to leave. It's probably a lot of things. It could be warfare, conquest, bloodshed. You know, later people of the different culture inhabited some of the abandoned cities. What is the archaeologists and then called a squatter period? They call it a squatter period. That's what they call it, archaeologists and all that. So basically, you got the statue right here. Of course, 2,500 BCE, and the people, killing a woman and all that. But then squatters also disappeared. careful note should it made the only people and culture of Valley Indus Valley civilization was the largest of its time, covered covered a vast territory, but effect extended north to the Himalayas. There was north to the Himalayas, so the culture was vast to the Himalayas, and east to what is now Vietnam. See, the east, what is now, they call it Vietnam in those areas, right? That's in the east. See, the Himalayas and all that, the Indus Valley was a culture, right? It was a people, but it changed over time. It could be a lot of things. But because of the Aryan invasion or migration, whichever subsequent Indus history was lost, they said it was lost. Okay. My man said it was lost. Additionally, we should keep in mind that the Aryan were illiterate nomads. They call me illiterate nomads, right? But the Rig Veda was written 600 years after they had arrived. So whomever was to kept the civilization alive in India during the during the cohesive they said during the cohesive period, it couldn't have been them. It couldn't have not been them. That's facts. It's true. Surviving remnants of the Indus Valley people in Southeast Asia will be dealt with later. They talking about South be dealt with where they talking about Southeast Asia will be dealt with later. So that's a lot of people. There's one people, right? So the actual people where they went to now, you know what I'm saying? But the Daro civilization died until archaeologists discovered evidence of the civilization in the 20th century as where these people went, and no one know for sure. Some people believe that they went to the southern India. Some surely did. Yeah, they said some surely did. But one guess is many of the Indus Valley people went to the north. They mostly went to the north into Elam and Sumer to rejoin their former group. So Elam and Sumer, you know, the Elamites, that's a group of people which will say they look similar to the India people or the dark Sumer people that was part of the eastern lands close to what you say India and Iran and Pakistan and all them areas, right? And they went to the Himalayas, right? That's basically what you got here. You know, you have a culture that wasn't really lost, but they migrated somewhere else or they fled through the conquest. So that was very happening in those days. Those days was rough. Culture shifts, things like that, right? A lot of history uncovered, unfold what is happening right now. You know, and that's pretty much like you see this all the time, right? But one guess is that many of the Indus Valley people went to the north, and Elon soon rejoined the former group. But but this scenario would explain somewhat. They said, I want to read this again. This scenario would explain the scenario's sudden appearance of the Medes and the Persia and Elam, as well as either the similar group in the eastern Anatolia. So a lot of those people came from Indus Valley. They go to, and the rest of the people came from Indus Valley. They went to Anatolia. This is could be factual in Elam and Persian and the Medes and all that. That's in scripture. These people were a people. That's part of that connection of history. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna see. Okay. Let me see right quick. Let me let me go here real quick. Oh, can we go back? Can we go back to okay, we're gonna go to part two in those valley two. That's what they skimmed through. Okay. Oh shit. Oh God, come on. Ah, damn it. Mouse is acting up. Okay. Okay. Let me it's a bunch of bullshit I had to get past. Get to the actual people, Verde, right people, and all this other okay. Albania Evans interaction, blah, blah, blah. Southern India. That's what they would say they look like. Okay. We're gonna get into the nitty gritty. They practice Hinduism. Okay, so we're gonna go here. South Asian albinism below. They talking about that. I ain't getting into Esau and all that. We ain't gonna get into that. We covered that in live stream. Rig Veda and all that. Yeah. We talk about the Dravidian people, but that's what they would look like. Some of the Indus Valley people look similar to those Dravidians and things like that. That's what they would look like. And it was in southern India. That's people had a culture. That's what you got now. Mixed race Hindus. Yeah. What you got now. I think this is all part of Indus Valley. Okay, my fault. Okay, we're gonna have to go back out and forth. My apologies. India, this Aryan local religion became known as Hinduism. Word derived from the Aryan word Sindhu, but the name of Aryan gave to Indus River. But the Hindu religion ranged from venerations of traditions of Aryan gods by urban intellectuals, but to worship of a diversity of local rule and agricultural deities. Generally, Hinduism is a conviction that the soul and or self, Atman, or the subject of samsara, but in transmigration, the transmigration through many forms of incarnation held together with this belief is another, but that of the karman, which it says that the soul carries, but with it in the burden of its past, with conditions of form its future incarnations. As long as the soul mistakes this phenomenal world for the reality and clings to the existence to it, exists in it. They say in it, and it is doomed to suffer, but the endless births and deaths. But the various Indian cults and philosophical systems offer ways in which to attain moksha or mukit, releasing a liberation from the misery of the subjugation and the i- inexorable process of cosmic, the cosmic time, but basically the liberation and the consistency of the soul's effective comprehensions. If it's an essential, yeah, it says, essential with unity and Brahman, but the supreme Atman, or the essence or the reality in its merging with the most of the ways of which was the goal may have attained required self effort. But mastering the medication and techniques and living an ascetic life, I talk about asceticism. Yeah, I talked about asceticism on the channel too. I did that. I did a stream on asceticism. Yeah, y'all can look that up. That's somewhere. I talk about that as well, asceticism. Yeah. But the ascetic life, but in the devotion of Bhakti and cults and associated with Vishnu and Siva, known as Shiva, an intense and personal devotion to the deity. The concern is to believe to earn divine and salvation. Also, see Jainism next to Indus page. Yeah, that's what it is. Hinduism, that's their religion, which you say modern and all that. But most of those people have Indus Valley history in those dynasties, and those people worship those deities. So some people believe in Hinduism. They try and go, let's go over to China. It skips. They don't have that accurate flow. Now, Indus Valley 3, ancient man's first civilizations. When last we left Indus Valley, Aryans from Central Asian plains had invaded the valley and then expanded into the rest of India. Yeah, that's what really happened. But they had also melded their religion's beliefs with the local beliefs, Hindu religion. Yeah, they call it Hinduism because before that, Indus Valley had their own shit. They had the unicorn, and they mixed this religion and they called it Hindu. You know, the Aryans did that cultural wise. But later, the Aryans learned to write. However, some Brahmins and consider it sacrilege, but to change from the communicating that the beliefs and orally and then putting them in writing. Form of the significant number of Brahmins supported to innovation, and they have been they began to put traditional Aryan stories into writing. But these writings became known as the Vedas, and the Veda meaning wisdom. But these Vedas became wisdom in literature that would be considered as an inflatable sources of timeless revealed truth. But the most important of Veda was the Rig Veda, which consists of hymns and devotional and incarnation written in 10 books. But in the far northeast, Brahmins performed as teachers and gave instructions to the local inhabitant elites who have been completely Hinduized, and these elites was accustomed into the difference of from local people. But they were offended by the posturing, pride, and arrogance of the Brahmins. They resisted a claim that the Brahmins to the higher rank and superior knowledge. Some among them opposed to bloodletting Hinduism and the animal sacrifices. Some of them um, also thought that the Brahmins to be involved into the ceremonial formalities and ritual, and a ritual saw the Brahmins' view of the gods and salvation as strange. But with this distant against the orthodox Hinduism, when a variety of men and visions impaired, with vision appeared, vision appeared, excuse me, vision appeared, I mean, but they tried to fill the void left the unfulfilled by Hindus. These were new sects and leaders and denied the authority of the authority of the Vedas. I mean Vedas or wherever you want to say Vedas or Vedas. I'll say Vedas. Vedas, I mean, excuse me, Vedas, and each developed a code of conduct and was living in the thing would hopefully lead to an enlightenment of fulfillment, right? So it's pretty much, these people have that civilization on lock. So the Jans people, yes, I talked about them in the live stream. That's what they would say in their movement. And you see the documentation, we won't have to read too much. And Buddhists, of course, that's how you got people Thailand worship that shit. That goes way, way back. Religions have a culture, Buddhist culture came out of Hinduism. They're actually cousins to it. That's what you got in those Asian countries. But history shows the Indus Valley people existed in that area, and then later they moved in different parts of the world. That's basically what you got here. And that's what these people look like. These are modern versions of them. Then you got the Mara Empire. Those are a group of people. But their lineage goes back to what? Indus Valley. See? Some of them are mixed in with culture, or some have it as their deities and their idols. They'll have hair like that they would say back in those days. So it's like these are ideals people. There was a people at a time and then conquest in the world. And yes, I talked about this in a stream about the sky and seeing, we talked about all that. So it's pretty much, I talked about this in a live stream. So yeah, this is pretty much it. We just covered, most of it came to live stream. This is part two. This is a final part. I'm through talking about this one. This one's a good one. I read a little bit. I didn't want to go in too much craziness, but in those valley, like I said, it's those people. I just want to make this soundproof and solid. But yeah, I did a little bit of reading on the last part because I didn't want to get it all in one, but I had to because it's short. The next one I'll probably do, it'll be a little longer than the previous, right? So when you have something like this is going to be the foundational thing to talk about, right? But you have to understand Indus Valley is very, very important. It's very, very important. When you have stuff like this, in the works. You understand that Indus Valley is one of the main things that I talk about. I'm gonna stick with it, but I'm not gonna talk about it no more after next week. But this week, I want y'all to get a feel that I did the research, and then I showed you the research and show you that it's vital that those people did exist and they had a lot of power. They had a lot of power and presence of the people that they were in. So a lot of times those cultures don't get talked about. That's where they stem from. Anytime when people talk about India, ask them about Indus Valley and do the research. And you'll never see it on Google, but shouts out to this website and this lore of websites. He breaks it down and then he does the research, archaeology, and things like that. And I've used it and I appreciate him all the time and help my content out. And then I do the research and read it for myself that those people don't mention in history class, but you showing archaeology and facts and you bringing evidence right here. So we got evidence that those people are those people. Some people say they're different and all that. It's a bunch of bullshit. They never tell you what that is. You know what I'm saying? See, we got the archaeology on our side. We don't need to argue over tiles and proofs and things like that. They're not going to teach you that in school because they're going to be biased in their political views and their small mind bigoted ways. You know, the world's bigoted in some aspects. That's the problem with it. They just don't want to tell the truth how pathetic they are. You know what I'm saying? But that's it on this subject. I will probably go in on the stuff. I already talked about the Moors and stuff. I'll talk about something different. I will look back at my videos and break down to you and what I was talking about back then and then just culturally. You know what I'm saying? And I'll just break down piece by piece with you. I may do that. I may do that sooner or later, but and just drop it. I'll record it one day and then I'll just give it to you this coming. But but today it's like I'll drop it for you. So Indus Valley is here. This is part 2. So it's pretty much like I'm in here now. And then next Wednesday, y'all know I'm going to go in the summer videos, what I've talked about. So with that, as one time, peace and bless the Most High Yah. It's with another one and shalom.